Today we're going to be looking at the Super Console X Cube. It's a retro emulation game console thing from China. Oh hey, hi there. If you're new here, allow me to introduce myself. I'm TechDweeb, welcome. I'm 40, I'm unemployed, I live in my mom's basement with my cat Hermione, and I spend my time making YouTube videos, building computers, and playing video games. And one of my favorite types of game to play is retro games. You know, good old Gameboy, Nintendo, Sega, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, all those good old games I grew up playing. And also old games I didn't grow up playing. Like, I don't know, Commodore 64, TurboGrafx 16, or Sega Saturn. There are lots of systems I didn't have when I was a kid, and I like to play those on retro emulation devices to discover all these old retro games that I never played. And that's why I love these retro emulation consoles. The first video that I made on my channel was when I checked out the Super Console X Pro. I actually checked out that video as I was getting ready for this video. Oh man, the quality of my videos has come a long way in a short time. That video was like 9 months ago or something. I freaking love that thing. I had it on my TV and probably put hundreds of hours on it playing old retro games. I loved it so much I turned it into an arcade machine. And it worked great, both as a home console and as an arcade console. I'll link to both of those videos below if you want to check them out. After you're done watching this video, of course. I'm also making a video on how to set up a Super Console X as an arcade machine. That video will come out soon, so get subscribed so you don't miss it. But since I used my Super Console X Pro as the system in my arcade machine, I lost the ability to have a mini retro emulation device on my TV. That's why I picked up this. This is the Super Console X Cube, which makes you think it should look like a GameCube, or any cube really, but it doesn't. It looks like an old Nintendo, an NES. So I don't know, weird names. Actually, speaking of weird names, there is a freaking jungle of Super Console systems out there. We have the Super Console, the Super Console X, the Super Console X Pro, Super Console X Cube, Super Console X King, and the Super Console X Pro Max Dual. And there's probably more, and more coming soon. And they're not all that different, to be honest. Some are newer, some are more powerful. I'm not going to explain the difference between them, but I will say that this one, the Super Console X Cube, is in my opinion the best bang for the buck version of the Super Console X. It plays everything up to the PlayStation era, quite a bit of Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, some PSP, you know, all the 3D stuff. Not everything will play well, but most of the stuff will play good, especially considering the price of this thing. Speaking of which, this cost me $60. Different versions come with different controllers, and there are different sizes you can get of the device. That's the main difference. 64 gigabytes, 128 gigabytes, 256 gigabytes. And that just comes down to how many ROMs you get on the device. With any of the options, you get all of the old stuff, so you won't be missing any Game Boy or NES or Super Nintendo or whatever. But the larger sizes have more of the high-end stuff. This version I have here cost me $60. It's the 128 gigabyte version, and it comes with, hang on, let me check my notes. 50,000 games. Wait, what? 50,000? Oh my god, that's a lot of games. What games and systems come on this 128 gigabyte version? Well, I don't know. I haven't opened it yet. Would you please be patient and let me just show you this thing before asking a bunch of dumb questions? Sheesh. Alright, enough chit-chat. Let's unbox this thing. On top, we have a box within a box. I'll check that out in a sec. Let's see what else we have in here. We have 400 instruction manuals, apparently. Instructions for the controller, if you don't know how to do controller stuff. A quick start manual for how to set up your console and change the language. I'm sure that's useful for some people. I'm a pro, so I don't need that garbage. What's this one? Bunch of words, say stuff, just a really useless word paper. Oh my gosh, look at this. How to download games from the KinHank FTP server. That's super shady. Whatever. These devices are super shady in general. Who cares, right? And here's our controllers. We get 2 of them in this package. It's a knockoff PlayStation controller. They're the same controllers I got with my other Super Console X Pro. You know, I don't mind these cheap controllers. I mean, they are super cheap, but they're not bad as cheap controllers go. They come with a little wireless dongle. They take AAA batteries. Oh my gosh, why can't I get this back on the controller? What the heck, man? Oh, come on. Oh, whatever, I give up. I can't deal with this right now, it's stressing me out. I'll show you this one. Yeah, they're super cheap feeling, very plasticky and light. I don't mind them though, you know? They feel fine to me. I like good controllers, but I'm not picky. The analog sticks work, the buttons work, they don't feel terrible. The shoulders are good. No analog triggers, but that's fine to be honest for the games you're going to be playing on this thing. The D-pad isn't great, but it gets the job done. No big complaints for me. This'll get you by. And you can use a Bluetooth dongle or just a USB controller to add whatever fancy controllers you want to use if you're a controller snob. I'm not. I use the heck out of these on my Super Console X Pro and I had a great time. Okay, on to the main event. In here we have our power block. That is used for power, as you might expect. HDMI cord in here, in case you don't have 300 of these yet. That's good, I guess. And the console itself. Here it is. Oh wait, there's a sticker on the side here. Warning, do not plug stuff, yada yada. Whatever. That's coming off. Oh my god, is it gonna leave sticker residue? It is, isn't it? I freaking hate stickers. Oh, wasted my time over here. I have more important things to do than mess around with sticker glue, you know? Alright, there we go. Okay, so here we are, the Super Console X Cube, ladies and gentlemen. Under the lid we have our 4 USB ports, some little LEDs on the front I think. Around the back we have the power button, the power plug hole, Ethernet, which is how you'll connect this thing to the World Wide Web. For instance, if you wanted to download new themes or box art or whatever, I'll actually show you that later in the video. This is an HDMI port, here's our micro SD card. Oh, and when you get the console, you should back this up. Use an SD card backup program. I use Win32 Disk Imager because if you mess up your settings or it gets corrupted, it's way easier to deal with flashing a new SD card from your backup than it is trying to fix a borked one or get a replacement from the company. You have been warned. Oh, and you can copy new games over to this SD card by shoving it in your PC too, by the way. And here's AV out, which you can use to plug in speakers if your display doesn't have speakers. And that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. If you're a tech dweeb like me, then you do care about the specs, so I'll go over them quickly. The processor is the S905M chip, which is a 64-bit 4-core processor, and it has a Mali 450 GPU. 1 GB of RAM, and for storage you'll be using a SD card or whatever capacity came with the device that you bought, up to 256 GB. This one I have here is 128 GB. And it comes preloaded with games, like a cheap Chinese console should, obviously. It weighs less than 3/4 of a granola bar, and it smells like poisonous chemicals. Okay, let's get this bad girl all set up then. Gonna need some AAA batteries for our controller. Oh crap, I forgot I have to deal with this battery cover. Oh, why can't I do this? This is so hard. Okay, there we go. So we need to shove the USB dongle in the USB dongle hole on the front, shove our power cable into the power cable hole, and shove our HDMI cable into the HDMI cable hole around the back. And, well, that's it. It's all set up and ready to go, I think. Should we fire it up? Yeah, let's do that. But first, we need to take a well-earned root beer break. Oh man, that's good stuff. I haven't had any real video sponsors yet, but if any bigwigs or executives over at A&W want to sponsor me, I'll happily advertise your product for some free root beer. Just saying. Hello, can you see me in the reflection? Wearing my authentic TechDweeb shirt that my mom made me so that real-life TechDweeb matches animated TechDweeb. I have this plugged into a 32-inch TV here, so let's fire it up and CB-weeby what happens, shall we? Yeah, we get this Kid Hank animated intro. It actually looks kind of cool. I don't hate it. Alright, so the system needs to start up and boom, here we are. The controller works fine right away. The system is working fine. Games load up, no problem. Good stuff. So what I'm going to do is connect the Super Console X Cube to my game capture. Because filming the screen, it doesn't look that good, and my camera keeps being weird with the brightness. It's hard to see stuff sometimes. I actually want to show off some of the menus and stuff, so this will just be way better if I capture the video. So let's do that. Right now. And here we are. We're going to start off our tour by going through all the systems that are included. We have Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari 2600, Atari 5200, Atari 7800, Atari 800, Atari Lynx, Atari ST, Thomas Wave, Commodore 64, ColecoVision, CPS-1, CPS-2, Dreamcast, Arcade, Family Disk System, Game & Watch, Game Gear, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Sega Genesis, Intellivision, Mame, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, again, Sega Mega Drive, MSX2, MSX2, 2, Nintendo 64, Naomi, Nintendo DS, Neo Geo, NES, Neo Geo Pocket, Magnavox Odyssey, OpenMore, TurboGrafx, Pokemon Mini, ports, PSP, PS1, Sega 32X, Sega CD, SG-1000, SNES, Super Graphics, TurboGrafx, again, Vectrex, Virtual Boy, WonderSwan Color, Sharp 6800, and Sinclair's ZX Spectrum. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. What should we test first? Oh, you guys know what's coming. It's the game I always test first. It's also one of my favorite retro games, Burger Time, on the Game Boy. As you can see, it works great. The game runs in the proper aspect ratio with some pretty nice looking bezels on the outside. This is running in RetroArch, so we have a ton of customizability here. For example, on the Game Boy, I like to tweak the colors. So if I open up the RetroArch settings with the hotkey, which is select an X, I can go into the game options and change the colorization. Lots of options to choose from. Oh, and this is cool. If I back out to the emulation station using the exit hotkey, which is start and select, and then I can open up the advanced system options with the select button, and whatever we selected here changes the settings for all the Game Boy games. So for instance, I could select a shader, like this one, barrel distortion. So you can see the screen is kind of warped, like an old CRT. That looks pretty great in my opinion. This one too, the curvature shader. It looks even more like an old screen because it has the scan lines. Or you can take it one step further and change the colorization for all the Game Boy games. This is what I did on my arcade cabinet. My cabinet's all orange, it's like an orange theme, so I applied an orange colorization with a curvature filter to make it look like a really old school amber screened arcade thing. It's really cool that we have so much customizability. It's all pretty easy to figure out once you get the hang of the basics. I'm not going to turn this into a setup guide or anything. I could do a whole video guide on how to use and set up a Super Console X. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd find useful. Here's a little GBA, Advance Wars 2, one of my favorite GBA games. And the GBA games in general look amazing, even on a large screen like this. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the GBA was the pinnacle of the 16-bit era of retro gaming. It had the same hardware limitations of about a Super Nintendo, but it came out later than the other 16-bit era consoles, so the games themselves had a much more modern design philosophy. You know, with like more sophisticated game design mechanics. We'd pretty much mastered pixel art by that point, so the games looked really great. And the system was around for a long time, so there were a ton of great games released on it. Oh hey, I'll show you this while I'm here. You can use the RetroArch menu to apply shaders too. There are lots to choose from in here. Some are very processor intensive and it'll slow down the performance. And you can experiment to see what works and what they look like. Here's the barrel distortion applied through RetroArch, for instance. Here's another function I like, the random function. Because this device has like 50,000 games, sometimes it can be overwhelming to try to find something to play. So I actually like this function. You press X on the controller to jump around in the game list randomly. This, combined with the fact that you can see screenshots for your game, is a great way to discover new games. Just tap that random button and cycle through games until you see a screenshot you like, and then try the game. I've discovered a ton of old games this way. And for no reason at all, here's Darkwing Duck for the NES. One of the best games on the NES. I freaking love Darkwing Duck, man. Little TechDweeb was a Darkwing Duck freak. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the diet root beer that's spilt on your keyboard and now it's all sticky and gross. I am Darkwing Duck. Atari 2600 has a lot of repeat games. I don't know, maybe this makes sense to you Atari lovers out there, but it feels like clutter to me. At least the descriptions are good. Usually, for most systems, there are some descriptions with a screenshot that tell you when the game was released, how many players it is, and a little blurb about the game. For example, check this amazing description of boxing. Oh, should I do a thing? Like a game trailer thing? Yeah, okay, let's do a thing. This'll be fun. Boxing shows a top-down view of two boxers, one white and one black. When close enough, a boxer can hit his opponent with a punch, executed by pressing the fire button on the Atari joystick. This causes his opponent to reel back slightly. Long punches score 1 point, while closer punches score 2. There are no knockdowns or rounds. A match is completed either when one player lands 100 punches for a knockout, or 2 minutes have elapsed for a decision. In the case of a decision, the player with the most landed punches is the winner. Ties are possible. Wow. You know, I had this game on my Atari back in the medieval ages, and I actually learned something by reading that description just now. I didn't know close punches were worth 2. I played this game hundreds of times, and now, in 2022, I learned something new about it. Thanks, Super SCX Cube. Alright, here's a thing. I wanted to show you this because it was a bit of a bummer, but I figured it out at the end, and I wanted to show it to you in case it happens to you. So I fired up Outrun for the Sega Genesis. A great game, by the way. And it started without any sound. Yeah, something was up, no sound. And then the sound didn't work in any other game after that. So I rebooted the system to troubleshoot, and the sound worked in other games, but then when I started Outrun on the Genesis, the sound was gone again. And there were a few other games that were causing this issue too. It was weird because it was working fine when I had it connected to my TV, but not on my display capture. Eventually, after about 20 minutes of Googling and trying stuff, switching audio drivers and devices, I found the culprit. It was my HDMI cable. I switched that out and now it works fine with my display capture. I wanted to let you know this in case you're having weird sound issues, so try swapping the HDMI cable. Moving along to Mame, here's another issue you might run into. The default emulator for Mame is Final Burn Neo, and that works for most of the games. Here I am playing Knights of Valor, and it started up fine, and it's a good game too. I like this one. And again, Turtles in Time, no issues. Another good game. Great game, actually. One of the best arcade games of all time. I think we can all agree on that. But when I tried to start up Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder, I got a crash. Apparently this ROM doesn't work with the default emulator. So what you need to do is go to Advanced Game Options. This will change the settings for just this one game. And under the emulator options, there are 6 to choose from. So what you want to do if you come across a game that doesn't work, this will mostly be for Mame and arcade games, by the way, you gotta try a different emulator. So I chose the first one in the list, Libretro Mame 2003+, and it works right away. So apparently they didn't use one single ROM set for the Mame games. There's some others mixed in there. But it's pretty easy to try a different emulator if the default one doesn't work. All the games that I tested that didn't work on Final Burn Neo did work on Mame 2003+ though. Capcom Play System 1 and 2 have their own categories, even though they were arcade games. Both of these worked fine. Here's Dungeons & Dragons, Chronicles of Mystara. One of my favorite arcade games of all time. Do you know this game? It's like a beat-em-up arcade game, but also a role-playing game. You don't see that very often in an arcade game. It's really interesting. Try this one if you haven't yet. Here's Super Nintendo. Oh man, I'm jumping around all over the place here. Whatever. You don't come to TechDweeb for highly produced, well-organized product reviews. You come for the tomfoolery. Super Nintendo worked great, even the harder to run stuff. Yoshi's Island causes problems on lots of the low-end devices. It's like a hard, weird Super Nintendo game to emulate, but it has no problem here. No stutters or anything like that. It's good to go. Let's move on to some of the higher end stuff. Here's Dreamcast. The 128GB version of the console only comes with 2 Dreamcast games. You can add your own, which I'll show you a little later in the video if you want. Here's Crazy Taxi running at the default settings and the native resolution of 640 by 480. And it's running just fine. No problems at all.
Taxi? Hey, come here!
Thanks! Take me to the cable car!
I wanted to push it a little further, so I bumped the internal resolution up to 720p. And again, running just fine here.
Right here.
Thanks! Take me to the cable car at the bottom of the hill.
Might be able to go up to 1080p on some of the 3D stuff, but as you'll see in a bit, some of it won't work really great at really high resolutions. I think 720p is the best easy choice for compatibility across the board. If you want to upscale at all, that is. I don't even like upscaling these old systems, personally. I like the chunky pixels on my retro games, but I know lots of you prefer upscaled, so that's why I'm showing you this stuff. Nintendo 64 is a tricky console to emulate, but it's working good here. I'm testing F-Zero X, and at the native resolution, it's running great. And it looks great. This is why I love the chunky pixels, because the game ran at this low resolution on the original hardware, and we enjoyed playing the games back then. No reason we can't enjoy them now like this. Actually, this is running at 320 by 240. The Nintendo 64 could run up to 640 by 480, but lots of the games had to run at lower resolutions just to keep them running well. So let's try upscaling. We'll go with 720p, which is our upscaling sweet spot on this device, in my opinion. And yeah, it's running just fine. No stuttering, no slowdown. I played for a while like this, and it ran great the whole time. Maybe there was some frame dips, but I didn't feel them. And there wasn't any audio stuttering or anything, so I say this is good to go at this resolution. And here's Star Fox on the Nintendo 64, again, upscaled to 720p, and working just fine.
Help me! Thanks, Fox! I thought they had me.
And in case you're curious, pushing it beyond 720p isn't gonna work well. Here's 1080p. Which isn't really playable, as you can see. And here's 960p. Again, not really playable. Maybe there are some systems or games that you could push up to 960p, but I say why bother? Just go with 720p if you're going to be upscaling. They look great, and you won't have to be constantly swapping resolutions around for your different games.
Do a barrel roll!
Nintendo DS is on here. That's random. Alright, whatever. If you want to play DS games on a TV, then go right ahead. You can control the touchscreen with the analog stick and the triggers, and the game plays with the D-pad and the buttons. PS1 is interesting. There's some things you should know about PS1. The first is that there's a ton of PS1 games included here, even on the 128GB version. 685 PS1 games. That's amazing. But there's a catch. To get this many PS1 games on here, they had to remove the music track from the games. See, here's Bloody Roar 2, and it's strangely quiet without the music.
Get ready. Fight!
If that bothers you, there is something you can do about that, and I'll show you that in a bit. The game runs great though. You know, this is a very hard to run PS1 game, and it's running without issue. So I don't think you'll find any PS1 games that aren't able to run at their native resolution. As for upscaling, the default emulator, we can't choose a specific resolution, but we can select this enhanced resolution option to run at double the resolution. So let's try that, and there we go. It's running great. Oh, by the way, I don't usually turn on FPS when I'm testing older retro games on these retro consoles, because I don't think it's super useful. You can have one game running at, I don't know, 55 FPS, and it feels like a stuttery mess with audio issues and all that. And another game runs at 55 FPS, and it feels just fine. And even when a game runs at native FPS, it can still feel stuttery. It's just not the complete picture, so I kind of go by feel. If the games feel good at the settings, then they're good. And if not, then they're not. It doesn't matter what the FPS counter would say. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. PSP is going to be very hit or miss. There are a few PSP games on here, but not many. There's like 10. They're mostly the PSP arcade games, or whatever you call them. Street Fighter Alpha 3 runs. It doesn't look great. It has some graphical glitches, as you can see, but it does run. I know from my old Super Console X Pro that this chip can run some PSP games. I was playing Monster Hunter on my Pro, and it ran great at the native resolution. I played it for a long time, but lots of stuff isn't going to run well. I'm going to show you more PSP games in a little bit, because what comes included on here isn't a good representation of what you can expect performance-wise. Like I showed you earlier, the Super Console X Cube has an Ethernet port. I'm going to use that now to connect it to my network so that we can download some themes. The network is detected right away. So to get new themes, we need to go to this themes downloader. There aren't any previews, which is a bummer. So let's pick this one, Neon Overdrive. There we go, that's downloading. And once it's done, we can select it under the appearance menu. And here we are. This is what this theme looks like. Not bad. The system comes with another theme preloaded. This is the Alakful Solo Cobalto. It's really nice looking. Nice full screen art for the systems. I've tried all these themes before, and my personal favorite is this one, with the creative name of New. This is the one I use on my Super Console X Pro, and I'm probably going to use it here. This is my favorite. At this point, I'm going to put my SD card in my computer and copy over a few of my own games. We don't have, any free space on the SD card. They've packed it full, so I'm going to have to remove a few games to make some space. I want to test a couple PSP games, so I copied over Burnout Legends and GTA Liberty City Stories. And I also removed Tekken 3 and replaced it with my own version. I'll show you that in a minute. First, let's test out these new PSP games. There they are in the list, but they don't have screenshots. But that's easy to fix because this console has a built-in scraper. So just go to the scraper option in the menu. My console here had a screen scraper account already in there. Whatever, as long as it works. And we can scrape our art right from the console. And there we go. Game art for our new games. That was easy. So let's try out these new PSP games and see how they work. Burnout Legends started fine. It was running good at the native resolution, but only for a little bit. It really quickly developed a stuttering disease. That's unfortunate. And GTA Liberty City Stories was very stuttery in the cutscene.
I know you've been lying low for a long time, so I want you to take it easy for a while, huh? Vincenzo will look after you.
And then it wouldn't load the in-game graphics. That's a bummer. And I kind of expected that. Like I said, PSP is going to be very hit or miss on this chip. The 2D or the less demanding games will probably work, and the higher-end 3D games that push the system hard, they're definitely not going to work well. Okay, so the reason I wanted to add my own PS1 game is to show you that if you add your own, you will get the music. My good buddy Boris, he had his eye on this console and he asked me to make sure that he could play Tekken 3 because he loves that game. I didn't think he'd want to play it if it didn't have the music. Pretty boring with just the sound of wet punches and hiya! So this one's for you, Boris. Tekken 3 running fine with sound and music. Pожалуйста. До свидания, comrade. So, what do I think about the Super Console X Cube? Well, I freaking love it. In general, I love these retro emulation devices. They are so full of retro games that you can have a freaking lifetime of gaming here. Playing your old favorite games, discovering new ones, it works great. Emulation Station is super easy to use. It comes all set up and ready to go. It's not perfect. There are some weird glitchy things you might need to troubleshoot that come up here and there, selecting different emulators and stuff. And you do have performance issues on some of the higher end systems. It's a shame that it can't handle all the PSP stuff, for instance. It can play lots of the higher end stuff, pretty much all your PlayStation, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, but maybe not all of it. You might find the occasional game that glitchy or doesn't have the best performance. Like 99% of the games on even the high end systems are gonna run fine except for PSP. But you gotta keep in mind the price. This was $60. $60 for the console, 2 controllers, and 50,000 games. You can't get that kind of gaming experience for $60 very often. So it's hard to fault it for not being perfect, you know? And this Cube Edition has slightly better performance than the original Super Console X Pro. And it's a great price for what you get. It's also adorable. It looks like an old Nintendo. How couldn't you love that? It's small, it's cute, it's fun, it's easy. That's why I love the Super Console X series. And this Cube version is my new favorite that I've tested. Granted, I've only tested 2 of them. I might get another one at some point just to test and review for you guys, and then give it away to a family member or something. Or maybe I'll give it away to a lucky subscriber. I've never done that before. Let me know in the comments if you think that would be a fun idea. And which version you'd like to see me review next. Or whatever else you'd like to see me test and review. I love hearing from you guys in the comments. And while you're down there, click the thumbs up button if you like the video. Or the thumbs down button if you didn't. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.